put this together, do you know?
Mum, last night.
Last night, that's what she went over to Tony's to do.
Okay.
And all these drawing pins supplied by Andre.
Andre, well done.
Yeah, I contributed.
That's his
Massive.
contribution.
That's a huge. That's the key part of
Yeah.
yourself.
Without
Without those, they'd just be on the floor.
Well, they would, yeah.
getting trodden on.
Yeah.
Hang on, wait, sorry.
That was the way. Did you enjoy your summer, Becky?
It was really good actually. Obviously our holiday was just so relaxing, and then
In Sicily?
yeah, and then I went up to Leamington a couple of times,
Yeah.
caught up with some old friends, went out for lunches and things like that. It was what was needed, I think. Got some planning done. Yeah, it was good.
And how's the start of the new school term?
It's been alright. So our principal has not really done much. He's come in, he's kind of sort of just sat back and observed it. He's come up
Is he
with
new?
Yeah.
Yeah, hello. It isn't a change of plans, this is best laid Italian planning. We've now decided that...
Tony, no, we're having a little family discussion here. You want to go first?
I think so.
I think Nita wants to go first.
If anyone can give you a seat there.
We told him that. We told him that.
I'm going home.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Jack, is that okay?
Yeah, a bit louder.
Okay. A bit louder? Right. Well, Leah gave me a card today which said, and I've forgotten it already, sometimes when I speak, my mum comes out. So, this is very much that sort of speech. It's a long one because we have two people who are 90. And I'm not allowed to miss anything out. If I get it wrong, I know I'm going to get an earful. So 90 years and two people, so I hope you charge your glasses, that you get comfortable, and this is a really long speech. I'm only going up to 1972, and my husband is going to take over from that moment, from that point. I've got my tissue, because I hope I won't cry. So, let's go way back to the year 1925. Okay. I'm out of practice. When the song Yes, sir, that's my baby. Herald the arrival of two very special people, Olive and Bruno, Mum and Dad. Olive was born to Janetta and Joseph Ferrari, the youngest of 5, while Bruno was born to Anita and Giovanni Besagni, the third child of what was to become a large family of 11. Mum lived first at Gospel Oak, while Dad was born at 48 King's Cross Road. Very soon both families moved, Olive to 31 Constantine Road and Bruno to 57 Victoria Dwellings. Now you may wonder why I mention the exact addresses, and it's because there are lots of people here who have many happy memories of those two households. And while life must have been very different in Little Italy compared to Leafy's Hampstead, what I do know is that both these homes were full of music and merriment, and these aspects undoubtedly form the basis of their unique personalities. While Mum's childhood consisted of singing, tap dancing, roller skating at Ali Pali and swimming at Parliament Hill Lido, she even managed to put on a play during her evacuation at Exton in Rutland. For Dad, it was running, football, with the occasional cricket match thrown in. Mum did well at school. She excelled in English and progressed to the Central School from Fleet Primary, while Dad attended St Peter's Italian Church School. But I should think living down the hill was an education in itself. So it's 1941, and the big band is the thing, and the boogie... I knew I shouldn't have chosen this one. The Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. was playing all over town. Bruno and Olive are 16 when they first catch a glimpse of one another. Both work in Great Sutton Street at Palliers, which specialised in traditional Italian method making of religious statues. Dad is an artistic sprayer, and Mum painting the gold lines and gold lace on the figures. This was the first time Mum was exposed to Italian men. Even though her grandfather, who was from Borgatano, was a well-known teacher of English and a popular person in the Italian community. Bruno was spotted by Fulham while playing for Islington's schoolboys. He signed with Fulham, yet despite an excellent debut playing alongside Joe Percuzzi, which earned him the headline, Bruno the Back, his professional career was to be short-lived because of the very low pay at the time. Shortly after, Dad started a plaster business working out of a small factory in Camden Town. They made figurines, including the infamous 3 ducks on the wall, and one scary plaque, and this was in Nonna's house in Oxton, a face you put on the wall and the eyes followed you around. It scared me. Anyway, stories of that time revolved around avoiding raids by the police over purchase tax. I always had a vision of men covered from head to foot in plaster, climbing out of windows, running down Royal College Street with the police in hot pursuit, all over a Dutch boy and girl. You can still see these treasures in vintage shops in Camden Town and Shoreditch High Street. Oh, Dad, if only we'd kept hold of them. And as you are so fond of saying, we would have made a fortune. Meanwhile, Olive found herself working for Realist Films as a trainee negative cutter, and then as an assistant film editor. From there she moved to the famous Pathley Films in Wardour Street, and she absolutely loved it. Working in the West End was great fun. Pathay was full of real characters. They were educated, and their language was fruity, which appealed to Mum no end. Where did their romance really start? Well, it was cycling that brought them together. The gang from down the hill regularly cycled to Runnymede. You can see by one of the photos that it was obviously the fetching outfits that sealed the deal. Bruno and Olive married in July 1948, a wonderful white wedding at St Peter's Italian Church, My mum's mother made all the bridesmaids' dresses and bride's dress, and she really was truly talented and had a special gift. Popular songs at the time were My Happiness, and just looking at the photos, you can see they summed up that special, very special day. And now I'm going to change tack, and here I'm going to talk about two families, the Ferraris and the Besagnis. Well, the Ferraris were a mixed bunch, both in personality and in culture. Grandad Joe was of Italian parentage, whilst my grandmother was English. This made for an interesting combination of a home full of Italian music and English cuisine. My mum still shudders at the thought of the celery crunching that went on at Sunday tea. It's true, isn't it? Oliver's the youngest was thoroughly spoilt by her older brothers and sisters. She slept cosily between Fran and Phil before they married. Stan was her protector when she was naughty, and Len, well, Mum simply drove him mad. Always in the way, always wanting to be included in whatever he was doing, and her father called her Nodge. Sport and music played a major part in all their lives, and at the centre of it was St Dominic's Priory Youth Club and choir. Stan and Len played football and cricket, while Mum played table tennis and netball, and I wonder who she took after. I don't know. Phil played tennis with her husband Dick, and Fran, well, she was an expert swinger of clubs. That's what Mum told me. However, Fran was also, her lifelong passion was the guides, and she was an arcala, and she did put on gang shows, which at the time was an outlet again for Mum's creative talent, and it gave me an opportunity to chat up the cups. I have vivid memories of them all, especially at Christmases where we all met up, albeit too infrequently. Mum was the youngest, and it has been very hard for her and sad to be the last one of her siblings still with us. However, we are so happy that Mary, Len's wife, is here tonight, and my cousins Alison, Lily and Hazel, with Lily's son Joe. What is so fantastic is that any time we manage to get together, we all just pick up where we left off. The genetic bond is great, the Ferrari spirit lives on, and we're all beginning to look like each other. The Besagnis, Italians full of fun and laughter. They're friendly, generous, hospitable. What's not to love? Yes. But how did they cope? One of Dad's stories is that when he was 18, he told his father, Dad, 11 kids, enough is enough. You're going to kill her. And he got the doctor to tell him to use condoms. When my grandfather died, Dad found hundreds of condoms. Stories of that time tell of the madness of Victoria dwellings, where relatives and friends living in such close quarters. The Besagnis had several rooms, but not necessarily next door to one another. The Besagnis had, going to bed must have been a hell of an expedition, as the bedrooms are around the corner in another block. One story has it that Uncle Pino was sitting on the loo during the war when a buzz bomb went flying past the window. I'm sure it gave him diarrhea by then. When the time came for Bruno to bring his young lady home to meet his mother, sitting in the kitchen were the stern-faced reception committee consisting of Nonna's sisters, Chazira, Lisa and Rosa, plus a gathering of Nonna's inquisitive neighbours. Their reaction was cool, to say the least. In front of them stood a blonde, green-eyed, obviously not an Italian girl, and yet her name was Ferrari. However, once Nonna had met Mum's dad Joe, who spoke perfect Italian, all was forgiven. You could say that Mum was a trailblazer for Auntie June and Auntie Rita. Similar to Mum, as a child, Dad was spoilt, but this time by his aunties. He was the favourite in this large family, taken on holiday and given treats. He was, in fact, their chaperone from as young as 8. On returning from a trip, he was usually interrogated by Uncle Jimmy, Auntie Lisa's intended, to ensure that nothing inappropriate occurred. Did it? You've never let on. Anyway, by the time Mum and Dad married, Rita and Lydia had already left for the States, following their dreams and their GIs. Ines, Maria and Dorina also eventually followed their sisters, having families of their own and establishing a very large branch of the Besagni family in the US of A. And it's quite sad because Auntie Lydia and Cousin Raymond were due to come but were unable to. So despite the distance, the family remained as close as ever. What I do remember most about my aunties at this time, Auntie June, was one of glamour. Red lipstick, stilettos, and enviable 18-inch waists. And, the chain smoking. Whenever they got together, there would be the Mount Vesuvius of ash at the table. And that brings us on nicely to 1950s and Flat 16. Mum and Dad moved to Middleton Square in 1956. A favourite song of the time was Que Sera, Sera. When they first got married, they lived in Constantine Road, where I was born, and they exchanged the tandem, that's a bike for some of you who don't know, for a pram. Then we moved to Montpelier Grove in Kentish Town, where Tony was born, and Mum never settled in that house. So at the age of 31, when Flat 16 became available, they moved, and a new phase of their life began. Dad was now beginning to establish himself as a reproduction artist, producing lamps and statues, specialising in different paint techniques. He had a shop and a factory in Caledonian Road, and later moved to Stratford, and his brother Remo worked alongside him. The times they were a-changing, and it was reflected in the music of the time, such as Rock Around the Clock, See You Later Alligator, Jailhouse Rock, and the all-time family favourite, Voila. And I remember that Maria and Dorina screaming every time they heard Johnny Ray and Frank Sinatra. So Flat 16 became the ever-expanding centre of family fun. The sitting room has seen the jive, the twist, the Madison, and endless variations of the shake. The family were expanding too. Olga married Albert, Pino married Rini, Remo married June, and I was lucky enough to be bridesmaid to them all. And when Maria married Jimmy, Flat 16 came into its own, and unbelievably, the reception was held there. Anyway, as you know, Dad is an extremely artistic person and a DIY legend. Nobody laughed. Well, he is. All the Besagnis share in this enviable talent. Not only can they envisage and design and make, but they can make anything. Right from the moment he set foot in Flat 16, where every room was painted brown and cream, he has constantly, lovingly redecorated it. In fact, one Saturday afternoon, Mum returned from shopping to find he had completely redecorated the sitting room in her absence. All lovely, you might think, except the wallpaper of choice for a featured wall was a 1950s nightmare of a pattern with mandolins and fruit on a black background. Say no more. I recall one terrible time when Dad had yet again papered the very same wall, and I opened a bottle of Coke, there's no change there, and sprayed it all over Sanderson's finest. And it was Uncle Pino who came to the rescue, and I don't think you ever knew. The fallout would have been horrific. Anyway, perhaps now it's time to talk about friends. Family have always been such an integral part of my parents' lives, but friends have also been at the centre. From the earliest days of their marriage, my dad would never miss his Tuesday nights at the Coach and Horses down the hill with his friends. Bob, Ronnie, Sammy, Gino, Ninny, Johnny Belly and Tony Doritas. The story goes that my dad even set out on foot from Kentish Town in the great smog of '52 that brought London to a standstill to try and keep this weekly date. They met in childhood and they were to become lifelong friends. And I welcome Sheila and Rita and many of their children here tonight, and I know my dad misses them and thinks about them every day. Now, this gets worse. The Middleton Square gang features so predominantly in my parents' story, it's hard to know what to leave out. First there was Eileen and Frank and Sheila and Vic and Joan and Reg. And I think the funniest story goes like this. Mum and Dad, next door neighbours, were, to say the least, bohemian. They invited the six of them to a fancy dress party. This in itself was a hoot. I remember Mum putting loads of bits and pieces on her dress and she went as Woolworths. And Frank perched a toy policeman's helmet on his head. If you knew Frank, you'd realise how funny that is. As they entered the party, they walked up the passage, they glanced into the bathroom, and there they saw a naked couple having sex in the bath. No, yes. Nevertheless, they continued into the party. Joan decides to take matters into her own hands and fills a saucepan full of water with the intentions of cooling the couple down. She rushes into the bathroom, hurls the water over them, but lo and behold, there is her husband Reg, who has decided to give matters a closer inspection. Reg emerges soaking wet and insists he was only looking for the soap. And they say the 1950s was boring. Later, the members of this gang increased to include Margaret and Harry, Michael and Sheila, Owen and Camilla, and Betty and Harry, and Tina and Johnny Belly. Saturday nights were often spent at the Shakespeare pub, and Mum told me that she could hear them returning. You could hear them returning as soon as they turned the corner of the square, usually screaming with laughter. Shortly after they moved to Middleton Square, Mum started what was to be a lifelong passion. I'm going to call these the early Amdram years. Eileen and Sheila, already members of St Peter and Paul's drama group. Mum was always a keen performer and joined and performed in a number of pantomimes. There is a picture actually out on the board. The usual lineup was this. Eileen was the thigh-slapping principal boy, Sheila the princess, and Mum, well, everything else and anything else. The main thing Mum remembers was just the awful costumes. During this period, Eileen, Mum and Sheila developed a song and a dance routine to tiptoe through the tulips. And this was to become their signature turn. They would perform this whenever they could. And I know Mum... Oh, goodness.
What was I doing now?
I don't know. You would dearly have loved to have done it. Just one more time.
Oh, one more time, yeah, I would have.
Also during this period, many of the crowd began to sing what was to be considered their song. Mum chose Fools Rush In.
Oh, yeah.
Sung it wonderfully and still does given the slightest encouragement. In the late 50s, our family vacations were spent at the great British institution, the Holiday Camp. A tricky minefield of knobbly knees competitions, fancy dress and topsy-turvy nights, where the men dressed as women and the ladies dressed as men. We did have photographic evidence until Mum said, oh, I hated doing that. But Dad, I don't know. And the opportunity to play football and perform on stage, it was the perfect way to spend 2 weeks. And for Mum and Dad, it was at Bramble Chimes at the Isle of Wight that they met their soulmates, Laurie and Jean. They were a perfect fit, immediately in tune. So in tune, in fact, they went on holiday together for several years, including an Italian adventure to Lido di Jesolo and Venice. There are many wonderful stories of these holidays, and I'm afraid I couldn't do them justice in the telling, but ask Mum and Dad and they will regale you of these hilarious adventures. It's truly wonderful that Laurie is with us tonight, with his son Simon.
Give Laurie.
And we love you, Laurie.
We do.
And many of those wonderful, amazing families members and dear friends are no longer with us. Come on, Anita. All too recently, we've lost our darling Auntie Olga and my grandmother Eileen, the charismatic Eileen. And it's very special that their children are here with us tonight on this occasion. And so the sixes come swinging in, and with the Beatles dominating our musical taste, She Loves You. And Help and A Hard Day's Night fill the airways. And 1 minute Uncle Johnny is racing around the square on his Lambretta, and the next he's marrying Rita. And guess what? Last chance for me to be bridesmaid again, along with my cousin Tina. So in 1965, everything changed and our little Christmas baby Nicolette was born, the best present ever. Actually, I think she was the result of baby envy after a Butlins holiday we had with the Glovers when Mandy was an adorable 1-year-old. The rest of the family was also expanding. My lovely cousins, Tina and Paul, John and Michael, John and Mia and Elisa all came along. And what's wonderful, especially as we get older, is that you look at us, you can see the resemblances to our aunties and our uncles and our grandparents and even our great-grandparents. And a recent unearthed photo shows that Tony looks so much like Dad's grandfather Giovanni. We always did wonder which side of the family Tony took after, and now we know. And if anyone could please tell us where Andre comes from, the increased size of the family meant that we had outgrown Flat 16, and Christmases and family celebrations had now moved to Auntie Olga's, first at the Elephant and Castle and then at the house in Highgate. At a party to celebrate a visit by Dorina, the artistic performing skills of Dad, Pino, Remo and Johnny came into the fore. The impromptu performances were so funny. I'll never forget the confessional sketch using the kitchen hatch. You'll have to ask them about it. It will be etched in the minds of all those that were there. It was at the same party that Mum decided to play a joke on everyone. She donned a pair of hot pants, which were really groovy at the time, a string vest, a pair of knee-high white boots. And when she arrived, she took off her coat and acted as normally. Nobody felt they could say anything as they thought she was having a midlife crisis. It wasn't until she burst into a fit of giggles that the penny dropped. Many of you here tonight will be surprised.
Sorry, I mean, Nana was speechless.
But many of you here tonight will be surprised to learn that under her dress she is wearing those very Recently, many of Auntie Olga's films, 16mm films, were all put on DVD. This time to celebrate a visit from Maria, and there we all are, rocking with laughter, the boys performing along with Laurie doing his Tommy Cooper act, and the girls all dancing and smiling, and everyone looking so happy and so young. And there were such wonderful memories. The 60s generally were a prosperous time for everyone and a period of change. Hens were on the rise and Mum started a revolution. On Sundays after Mass, the men would pop off to the pub and return just in time to carve the joint. Mum decided that instead of standing around guard over the oven, the ladies would stick the food in the oven on a low light and retire to Dirty Dick's for a gin and tonic, rushing back in time to do the gravy. This was to become a well-established, not-to-be-missed routine that went on for many, many, many years. And as us girls grew up, we often at various times joined them. Sue, Vicky, Helen and I could not compete with the jokes and the general banter, but it was just lovely to join our mums. However, if Sunday lunches were anything to go by, I have a feeling that perhaps Mum often had a scotch and soda too many. Mum and Dad hit their 40s in 1965 when Make It Easy on Yourself topped the charts. Still playing football with Johnny and Rem or in the Mazzini and Garibaldi team. When eventually he stopped playing, he became the Sponge Man. Dad thinks he must have been the best in the business, as when the injured players saw Dad running towards him with a bucket, they miraculously recovered. It was during this period that Mum and Dad became involved more with the club. Dad eventually became a member on the committee, and their social life revolved around club events and dinner and dances. And Mum added Carmen Miranda to her repertoire. Olive and Bruno have attended every Italian procession since 1946, only missing in 1948 because of their honeymoon. In the early days, members of the family always walked, but in the 60s, Dad was asked to help with one of the floats. It was magnificent, the Virgin Mary looking over the world, standing on a massive globe. I remember Dad being extremely proud as he escorted the float around the processional route. And the added bonus being that someone saw him and remembered he owed him money. God moves in mysterious ways. And this grew into another tradition. Armed with staplers, wire, paint, cardboard, the team, consisting of Dad, Pino, Rem, or Tony and Victor, with Johnny directing proceedings, created over the years some amazing floats. What is equally special is that everyone was encouraged to be in the tableau. And who could forget Gio's imposing Roman soldier? And Rem was Pontius Pilate. Dad's favourite one, which had the stern of a boat rising out of the sea depicting St. Peter, the fisher of men. And before we knew it, it was Olive and Bruno's silver wedding anniversary. But it was at another party to welcome Ines from the States, and a night that changed my life. And I think Jack is now going to take over.
How's everyone holding up? No interruption. Anita has admirably passed the baton to me, and I'll try and take it over the finishing line, covering the years 1973, when I inadvertently stumbled into this family, right until the present day. How did I stumble into this family? Well, it started one hot summer evening as I was driving through the financial district of London. The sun was slowly dipping behind the concrete and steel buildings of the city. Prisms of light were reflecting off the glass facades. When I spotted her, swaying seductively along Leadenhall Street, I inched my car alongside her. She turned to me, stopped. We chatted, and then she invited me to a party. But this was to be no ordinary party. It was a Besagni. Once hooked, there was no escape. And next up was the Besagni Christmas party, where Bruno, Pino, Remo and Johnny were so tuned into each other's wavelength, they'd perform ad-lib sketches and made us convulse with laughter. Additionally, any newcomer to the family were expected to do a turn. I was fortunate, as I had a pretty good Columbo and Frank Spencer routine. But others, such as Uncle Albert and his magic routine, were not so lucky. Had the misfortune of being mercilessly savage. Whilst these performances were going on, the younger, less outgoing generation were all shrinking into the background with a "please don't pick me" on their faces. Most of you have been down to flat 16, 43 to 53, Middleton Square, London, EC1, which is really as much part of family folklore as Ray Bordelli's dancing and George Pugh's idiosyncrasy. Talking jokes. The flat in its glorious Christmas heyday would house Nonna and all the Besagni clan, their children, neighbours and friends. As well as the impromptu shows, there'll be dancing, and all of this in a fog of the thickest cigarette smoke. That little flat is a treasure trove of memories and memorabilia that Olive and Bruno will pull out at the drop of a hat. Whether during a football chat, Bruno can instantly pull out of nowhere a 1934 programme from England versus Italy at Highbury, or Olive can instantly lay her hands on a bit of sheet music of Alma Cogan singing 20 Tiny Fingers. Bruno and Olive were integral to the thriving Italian community of London, and for me no summer was complete without the annual Scampagnata. Arriving in a muddy Essex field to see Bruno striding purposefully with a bullhorn in hand, organising the three-legged race, while trying to persuade some shy, prepubescent teenage girl to enter the Miss Scampagnata. Whilst generously giving so much of his time to the club and its myriad of activities, the church, the procession and the family, Bruno was still producing everything from busts of Shakespeare and Beethoven to bulldogs and Siamese cats, all produced in a cavernous factory with just Tony, Remo and an army of mice. Olive, meanwhile, reinvented herself from her Pathé days and did a business and secretarial course. You did. Well done. Which led to a job at a book publisher's, and later she went on to work at the Media Resources Department of Kingsway College. Her ability to keep current and learn new things does sometimes impact on the rest of the family. When at the age of 80, she bought a laptop. And in turn, Anita and I became her IT consultant. At times, I had a voice in my head that wanted to say, "Olive, to access your Hotmail account, you must exit Windows. Click on Start, pass your cursor on the internet icon." No, there is no acorn. It is an icon. Anyway, family-wise, one by one the children married. But what did Bruno think of his children's choice of partners? The firstborn of the family, Anita, having brought me home, Bruno was to say, "How come you found the only Jewish boy in London with skin?" Next up was Tony, who had been courting Marion for 2 years. She'd already become part of the family And when Tony came home excitedly to announce he was getting engaged, Bruno asked, "Who to?" And finally, the lovely Nikki, who stuck with tradition and met Gio, a smashing Italian boy. Bruno was to say, "Shame he's a calabrese." Having said that, Nikki's wedding to Gio gave Bruno the opportunity to walk down the aisle of the Italian church with his precious Nikki and give her away to the southern Italians. These unions bore 8 grandchildren and to date 1 great-grandchild. And Bruno became the toy mender, whilst Olive became the keeper of not only the Besagni family history, but nearly every Italian down the hill. More of that later. As the years roll on, we come to the 3rd age for Olive and Bruno, the showbiz era. For Olive, who had written old-time music hall material to entertain friends and the old people at the church, now developed her skills to writing and directing productions, many of which you will remember. Blitz and Pieces, Frothy Coffee, and Down the Hill. These shows became part of the community and gave an opportunity for the children and family and friends to participate in something really special. Some of those cast and crew are here tonight. If that wasn't enough, somehow she was running the choir at St. Peter's and St. Paul's. Bruno was always supportive of these all-consuming ventures, but his big break was to hit the silver screen when a researcher visited Olive and Bruno. A film researcher visited Olive and Bruno for some local advice about statue makers. He took one look at Bruno and said, "Son, you're going out there a boy, but we're going to make you a star." The film was called Queen of Hearts, but it ended up breaking hearts with the lack of screen time that Bruno received after some vicious editing. Just going back a few years before this, in 1979, in recognition of Bruno's devoted service to the Italian community, he was awarded the insignia of Cavaliere dell'Ordine, I do this better in Spanish, Ordine Stella della Solidarietà Italiana. These 2 are very special people, and Olive has... That's all right. It's because it's that's the only reason I'm saying it. These 2 are very special people. Now, Olive has given a legacy to not only the family, but the Italian community, when at the age of 86, she put together a collection of oral histories telling the story of Italian families in Clerkenwell, going back over generations. The book was called A Better Life and has been highly acclaimed throughout the community. Olive was encouraged and supported by Jerry and Alison, as well as the hard work put in by Bruno. Anita and I have been lucky that we shared so many happy times and wonderful summers with both of them. Firstly, in the unlikely setting of Thorpeness in Suffolk, where Tony, Marion, Nikki, Gio and all the kids used to share a really old-fashioned English summer. And later it was to be Spain, where Olive and Bruno would stay with us for 3 long, very long, sometimes intense weeks in our house. So now we come to old age for the posh and becks of the 20s. To have reached this mighty landmark is truly amazing. They may both walk a bit funny, and maybe it's the bickering that's keeping them alive, but it's a testament to them that over 100 people have turned up to celebrate them, to love them, and to salute them. Bruno and Olive, te salut.
in this speech for 2 weeks. And I couldn't throw it away. Anita and Jack said it all. Oh, it's a shame, really. It's such a lovely speech. It's only to say thank you. I'll start off, to my family, Anita, Tony, Nikki, Jack, Marion and Gio, to my grandchildren and to my great-granddaughter, to my brothers and sisters, to the Ferrari family, to the Peony family, and to all their offsprings, we've loved you all. To my friends, what can I say about them? All the best. No, I don't mean that. But to us, we think you're the greatest. I've got to cut it all short because Nita said it all. Because Olive, I thought she was a posh bird from Hampstead. When I heard the name Ferrari, I thought, well, no, I'm in here. And they got less to leave. Well, I know. Well, you con me. Where was I? No good. It's just, I'm talking about senior citizens now. No, this I kept for myself. You know we're the nations of leading carriers of AIDS. We have hearing aids, band aids, roll aids, walking aids, medical aids, government aids, and most of all, monetary aids to the children. The golden years have come at last. I cannot see. I cannot pee. I cannot chew. I cannot screw. My memory shrinks. My hearing stinks. No sense of smell. I look like hell. My body's drooping. I've got trouble pooping. So the golden years have come at last. Well, golden years, kiss my heart.
Isn't this marvellous? I thought I was going to have to stand up. I can dance actually, but don't stand. Oh right, this has to be ad lib, I'm afraid. So busy helping Bruno with his phone calls from Nita saying, when did this happen, Mum? What was that? Was the other? And didn't write anything for myself. But what a life I've had. A wonderful, happy life. Living with a man, and I'm serious about this, and husbands, listen, he has never presented me with a bill in all my life. He's just paid them. And I think that's quite rare. He's never put a thing on the table and gone, now what's this? I've never ever had that from Bruno. You know, he's just, as long as I was happy, he was happy. And that's a wonderful thing to say. And he's a lovely person to live with. At times. My next door neighbour over there has gone, but she hears it.
Anyway, I can't tell you what a magnificent evening you have made this for us. And I don't think there was anyone that didn't come. Absolutely not. Everyone came that was asked, and isn't that marvellous? And they've come from far and wide. And Kentish Town? No, but it's seriously. And during my life, I have met some wonderful young people. And two of them are behind me here now. Robert, who was 18 when I met him. He brought Romano down, and this magic music that these have made over the years, I can't tell you. Nita, who's not a one for sort of jumping at you with congratulations, she said, but the music from your shows was always wonderful. There you go, boys. Two lovely people, and I'm 90, and they're striplings. Oh, 89. These young striplings love me, don't you, boys? And my lovely grandsons, 7 boys, 1 girl. I mean, isn't that wonderful? 7 boys, how lucky can you get? And 1 wonderful girl who gave me a great granddaughter. Another girl, so we've got 2 girls. Any more coming up? Anyway, my lovely boys, my lovely looker down there with his dad, and where's my Jan? Look at him, he can pick me up now. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, there's my lovely Helen there. Helen and I are very, very close. We phone one another every night, say good night, don't we? Yeah. And I've got lots of very, very good friends here. I wish I could name you all, but you all know how I feel about you anyway. And the Besagni family, well, couldn't get anyone better. Couldn't get a family better. Loved them all. I think they liked me a bit. No, it's all been wonderful. Wonderful. I think you've had enough talk. So, no, wait a minute, I'm going to sing. Who's your guardian angel? Oh, for God's sake.
Well, I've got to thank my brother John, who set this party up and has looked after me for the last few years. And I've got 7 guardian angels. Now, you think they're not around, but they are. Mark, Michael, Frankel, Vic, Peter, Johnny Fitz, Bernard. They look after me week in, week out. They make sure I get in the car, they make sure I've got my stick, my trusty steed, yeah. And I say, God, and just say, God bless you all.
Thank you.
Get the mic off them. Yeah. We'll never get home. Enough.
I beg your pardon. I can't talk, I'm going to sing.
Go.
Alright, I have to be full thrashing because I've got to sing well. I was a lovely teenager. I had to do that. Rushing where angels fear to tread. And so I come to you, my love, my heart above my head. And though I see the danger there, there's a chance for me, but I don't care. Who's rushing where wise men never go? But wise men never fall in love. So how are they to know when we met? And my life begin. So open up your heart and let this fool rush in.
Happy birthday, Mum and Dad. Happy birthday.
What I haven't done.
Who's made a speech?
What my life's been like. What I haven't done is thank my wonderful family. They did all of this. They really did. And Brother John, he's seen Bruno through a terrible time, and he was my right hand. I must say, he's wonderful, and oddly enough, he brought us to this place. And thank you, John, and thank you, my family, my lovely family, Ferraris, Besagnis, everyone. I love you all, and I'm so pleased to see you. There wasn't a person who never came. Thank you.